Hey everyone, welcome back to FT News. I'm Myra. After 5 brutal, chaotic, bloody seasons, The Boys has officially ended. And honestly, this finale feels less like a giant superhero victory, and more like a tired world finally collapsing under the weight of everything that happened. Because yes, Homelander finally dies. But the ending doesn't really feel triumphant. It feels empty, sad, exhausted, and honestly, that's probably exactly what the show wanted. The finale begins after the shocking death of Frenchie, which immediately changes the emotional tone of the episode. Instead of explosive action right away, the opening focuses on grief. The boys gather for a small burial, and for one of the first times in the series, everybody actually feels broken. But the most important thing happening early on is Kimiko. Something is clearly wrong with her. Ever since her powers evolved earlier in the season, everybody expected her to become more dangerous or unstable. Even Butcher seems nervous around her now. The show spends several scenes making viewers think Kimiko might eventually lose control and become another monster. But the twist is actually much more emotional than that. Kimiko's powers are no longer fueled by rage. They're failing because she's grieving Frenchie so deeply that she literally cannot access the emotional state needed to unleash her new abilities. And honestly, this becomes the emotional core of the entire finale. Meanwhile, Homelander is preparing for what he calls the reboot of the universe, which is exactly the kind of insane God-complex nonsense he's been spiraling toward for years. The finale leans heavily into the idea that Homelander no longer sees himself as human at all. He genuinely believes he's a divine figure chosen to reshape society however he wants. And the Easter setting matters too. The entire event is framed almost like a twisted religious rebirth. Homelander isn't just trying to become America's ruler anymore. He's trying to become its savior. Or at least that's how he sees himself. But even while preparing this giant speech, Homelander is mentally cracking. The biggest reason? Ryan. Throughout the season, Homelander kept trying to mold Ryan into his successor. He wanted Ryan to accept power, violence, and superiority the same way he did. But Ryan increasingly rejects him. And that rejection destroys Homelander emotionally more than any physical attack ever could. That becomes very important later. Now, while Homelander prepares his public announcement, the boys launch their final mission. Their plan is simple: infiltrate the White House, get close to Homelander, and finally kill him. Of course, nothing goes smoothly. The group walks directly into a trap almost immediately. And honestly, the finale keeps the action surprisingly small scale. Instead of giant CGI wars or massive destruction, most of the episode focuses on tense character confrontations and emotional payoffs. Ashley ends up becoming one of the episode's biggest surprises. After spending years surviving by blindly following whoever held power, Ashley finally rebels against Homelander. It's messy, desperate, and selfish in some ways. But it's still one of the only truly courageous things she's ever done. And that's kind of the point. The finale repeatedly shows that even weak or morally messy people can still make one meaningful choice in the end. Then the team splits up for individual fights. Mother's Milk and Huey take down O'Father in one of the finale's more absurd scenes involving a ball gag weapon payoff that the show had set up earlier. Starlight fights the Deep. And honestly, his death feels intentionally pathetic. There's no big emotional send-off. No tragic final words. The Deep dies the same way he lived. Desperate, stupid, and completely unable to understand the damage he caused. Then we finally reach the massive confrontation in the Oval Office. And this is where the finale becomes much more psychological than physical. Homelander begins his huge speech, but completely loses emotional control when Ryan rejects him again and the word father triggers his own childhood trauma. That's important because Homelander's entire identity was built around abandonment and emotional abuse. Deep down, despite all his god fantasies, he still wants validation as a son and as a father. But Ryan refusing him destroys that illusion. That's when Butcher and Kimiko arrive. And Kimiko finally unlocks the truth about her powers. Earlier in the episode, she experiences a vision of Frenchie. And Frenchie tells her something incredibly important. Her true strength was never rage. It was love. Honestly, it sounds cheesy on paper. But the scene actually works emotionally because Kimiko's entire story has always been about finding humanity after endless violence. So instead of rage fueling her final attack, love does. And with that realization, Kimiko unleashes a massive energy blast that strips Homelander and the others of their powers completely. For the first time in the entire series, Homelander becomes human. No lasers. No invulnerability. No godhood. Just a terrified man. And then Butcher kills him. Brutally. Publicly. In front of the entire world. After years of build-up, Homelander finally dies exactly how he feared most. Powerless. But here's the genius part of the finale. His death doesn't feel satisfying. At all. And that's intentional. Because The Boys spends the entire ending showing that killing one monster doesn't magically erase the damage they caused. Homelander already changed the world. The fear. The division. The corruption. The obsession with power. All of that still exists after he dies. And Butcher realizes this almost immediately. That's why he feels nothing after finally getting revenge. No peace. No relief. Just emptiness. Because Homelander's death cannot undo years of destruction. And honestly, the show is clearly making a broader point here. Charismatic extremists don't just disappear when they die. The systems and emotions they created keep spreading afterward. That's why Ryan's reaction matters so much too. Ryan watches Butcher murder Homelander. And instead of feeling liberated, he looks horrified. Because Ryan finally sees both sides clearly. Homelander became a monster through power and abuse. But Butcher also became monstrous through hatred and revenge. And Ryan realizes he doesn't fully belong with either of them anymore. That's why he rejects Butcher's offer to become family afterward. He walks away entirely. Which honestly may be the healthiest decision anyone makes in this entire finale. Then comes Butcher's final storyline. After Homelander dies, Butcher still cannot let go of vengeance. He becomes obsessed with the idea that Bot itself must also be destroyed completely. So he decides to release the deadly virus through the building's sprinkler system. And this is where Huey finally becomes the moral center of the show. Huey stops him. Not through violence. Not through revenge. But through compassion. He convinces Butcher to finally let go. And honestly, this may be the single most important moment in the finale. Because The Boys ultimately argues that revenge never actually heals anybody. It only creates new damage. Butcher finally understands this too late. After spending years consumed by hatred, he dies from a simple gunshot wound instead of some grand heroic sacrifice. And honestly, that feels very intentional too. The show refuses to romanticize him in the end. Butcher dies as a tragic, broken man who destroyed himself chasing revenge. Afterward, the finale gives surprisingly peaceful endings to most of the surviving characters. Mother's Milk takes Ryan with him. Kimiko travels to France to honor Frenchie's memory. Singer returns as president. And Huey and Annie prepare to start a family together. Though honestly, naming their daughter after Huey's dead ex-girlfriend is definitely weird. But overall, the finale tries to give viewers at least some emotional closure after all the darkness. Still, the ending feels strangely restrained for a final season. And that's probably why reactions are so mixed. The emotional scenes work. Some character endings work. But the finale never reaches the savage unpredictability that made early seasons of The Boys feel special. Instead, it feels quieter. more tired. Almost like the show itself is exhausted by its own violence and cynicism. And honestly, that may actually fit perfectly. Because by the end of The Boys, nobody really wins. Not truly. The monsters die, but the damage remains. And maybe that's the darkest thing the show ever said. This is Myra from FT News, signing off.